I'm Daryl Hatton. I'm CEO of Crowdfundr, the crowdfunding platform that's based in Canada. And this is the True North Country Comics podcast.
Welcome to the True North Country Comics podcast, dedicated to promote Canadian comic book and graphic novel creators and supporters. I'm John Swinimer. On this special episode in the series entitled Made in Canada Creator Resources, I chat with specialists in particular areas to discuss whether Canadian comic book and graphic novel creators have all the resources they need in Canada to produce and promote their content. Please like and subscribe to this website by hitting the subscribe button so you'll be notified about new podcast interviews and article posts. This podcast is available wherever podcasts are enjoyed. Please like, follow, and subscribe. Based in Vancouver, British Columbia, Daryl Hatton is the CEO of ConnectionPoint and of the award-winning crowdfunding companies Fundraiser, Sponsify, CocoPay, and Crowdfundr. He's founded multiple startups and helped bring one, Optio Software, to a successful NASDAQ IPO in 1999. Daryl actively serves as director of the National Crowdfunding Association of Canada, plus he's also a board member or advisor to a handful of other hot startup companies in Canada. As a social media guy, his tagline includes words like King of Gastown, Entrepreneur, Cardiac Survivor, Foodie, Whiskey Nut, Philosopher, Mentor, Father, and Friend. Powered by ConnectionPoint, based in Vancouver, Crowdfundr offers comic crowdfunding tools that bridge a relationship between creators and supporters. Offering 3 different pricing models, creators can get projects funded for free or with minimal costs. Creators can keep more of what is raised on Crowdfundr and put the extra money into marketing, hire additional illustrators, and attend more conventions. Other benefits include getting funded ASAP, a branded and free storefront, the ability to run multiple campaigns, achieve real goal numbers, supported by social sharing, and more. So, without further ado, here's a special episode of Made in Canada Creator Resources featuring my chat with Daryl Hatton from Crowdfundr. So, Daryl Hatton, thank you very much for taking time to chat with me.
Hey, happy to be here, John.
I appreciate your time. Before we get going with all the questions, I would like to know, what was the first comic book that you read?
I had to think really hard about this. And funny enough, I think it was Archie comics. While I was out at our cottage in Saskatchewan in the summers, probably when I was 6 years old, 7 years old, something like that.
That's pretty cool. Archie's a popular one for sure. Absolutely. So we're here talking about technology in Canada and tools that comic book creators in Canada can use to get their books off the ground and out into people's hands. So with that in mind, I want to ask you about your company and what is your role there? Can you talk a little bit about it?
For sure. The company is called ConnectionPoint, and I'm CEO. And with ConnectionPoint, we have what we call a collaborative commerce platform. We help people raise money for all sorts of different kind of impactful projects. And that can be personal and professional charity, or it can be creator industries like comics and documentary films and music and that kind of thing. Even the floats at Burning Man or the art pieces at Burning Man. Funding healthcare for a common kind of crowdfunding use case, etc. So we have a bunch of different brands, and one of them is Crowdfundr, which is what we're going to talk about today, about helping creators and entrepreneurs fund their projects and collaborate with their community and raise the funding they need to keep going.
Very good. And what is your role there at the company?
I'm founder and CEO. I'm kind of a multi-entrepreneurial thing. Founded different companies. One of them we took public on NASDAQ in December of 99. I'm a tech geek who happens to end up with a CEO hat on.
Very good. Very good. So here's the $1 million question. Why did you and your team create Crowdfundr?
So we'd already been running with our first brand, which was Fundraiser, Fundrazr. I can say Z here. It's wonderful. We had helped raise hundreds of millions of dollars for personal and professional charity campaigns. And we had customers who were coming to us using Fundraiser and saying, this seems to be one of the best type tools out there for raising money for doing my creative projects. In particular, comics groups came. And they said, but when we show up at your website, we don't feel like we're at home. it's really hard to figure out if this is a tool for us. So they said, why don't you make a brand that's all about the creator industry and we'll support you? They were looking at the time in particular for moving away from Kickstarter for a variety of reasons around AI and crypto and other things like that Kickstarter was getting involved in. So we said, basically, if we build it, will you come? And they said, yes. And we did. And so we
Very
took
good.
our fundraiser platform and we really, kind of tweaked it to make it work better for creator industry and launched Crowdfundr a few years ago and are getting good ratings and good reviews on what it can do for a creator.
Good to hear. Let's talk a little bit more about the specifics. How can Crowdfundr help comic book and graphic novel creators? Are there any specific features and benefits that help them?
Very much. So a lot of a crowdfunding type project is communicating out to a community and helping them understand the impact of the project that you're running and why they may want to participate and support you. So a lot of the features around Crowdfundr are around storytelling, being able to tell the story, and about doing commerce around it, being able to sell books or bundles or perks or rewards for your community to help them pre-fund your production of your work, whatever that work would be. And so a lot of the capabilities on there are about being able to take an order for your books in advance using that kind of all or nothing funding model that is, popularized by Kickstarter and Indiegogo, and being able to use it in a way that works better for you than those other platforms. And there's a lot more we can talk about why it works better for you, and we'll hopefully go into a little bit of that. But really, it's about using the technology to kind of promote your project, get it out in the community, help get your fans and to become advocates and help you find others through their social sharing and their support of you who might be also interested in your work. And together you end up funding it.
Right. No, that makes sense. Now, in a recent podcast, I spoke with the creators at Group of Seven Comics, and they're the ones who actually mentioned you and they're using you right now, your resources. Can you talk about any other Canadian-based comic book or graphic novel creators who are using Crowdfundr today?
Yeah, one of the strengths of the platform is that it's about you and your branding, and it's about being able to run multiple projects and take advantage of the community that you're building up around your projects. So we have a really great example of someone doing a great job with this is Black Eye Press out of Toronto. Black Eye Press has run, I think it's 14 projects with us so far. They do it under their own branding. So when you come onto Crowdfundr, if you look at the campaigns, they're all Black Eye Press in the branding. There's just a little powered by Crowdfundr down below. And the point is it should be about their brand, not about our brand and the community that you're building, not about us. So they've gone in and they do projects. And I was just taking a look at some of the projects here and, they're raising anywhere between 10 and 20, maybe. I think they had a couple of, just looking here, they've had small projects that have raised a few $1,000s. They've had larger projects. Looking here, one of their Distant Fire graphic novel that they raised $16,000 on a $5,000 goal. And they've got Dwellings, which was a very interesting kind of comic series that they raised $14K on a $5,000 goal. And if you, kind of come on crowdfundr.com, Fundr, we dropped the E. Everybody jokes I've broken the E on my keyboard and all my brand names. If you come onto crowdfundr.com and search for it, you can see examples of their projects. And they do a particularly good job of doing their artwork and their storytelling and the kind of designing the perks and incentives that people would use. As a result, they're getting good, consistent results of bringing in and getting a community together to fund, hundreds of thousands of dollars here overall, or over $100,000 so far.
Wow, that's great. That's a good success story for sure. So some have compared, and you mentioned it, Kickstarter. Is it a fair comparison to say that Crowdfundr is like Kickstarter, or what would you say to that?
It is. It's like Kickstarter, but it's not Kickstarter. And there's a couple of things that are important there. One of them is that branding that I mentioned. This is all about, people will say, hey, I listed my project on Kickstarter, and they promote Kickstarter, 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 and not as much their own project. And as a result, they don't get the same kind of brand equity going on for their own community around it. The other thing is that because we are focused on helping the creator manage their own community, we give tools like there's a CRM built in to be able to help track the backers across multiple projects. What perks or rewards have they bought? Helping you with the fulfillment of those perks and rewards, being able to kind of do communications out to that community, like being able to automatically broadcast, hey, I'm starting a new project to everyone who's already contributed to you before, and helping you have access and connection to your backers, as opposed to the backers being considered to be owned by Kickstarter, which is the way approach Kickstarter does. We want to make sure that these are your people, that you have a community, you can connect with them, because they're going to be the strongest advocates for your growth over time. They'll help you. A lot of the thing that we learned in the kind of creator community, and particularly in the comics community, was how much cross-promotion and goodwill that would happen as people were saying, hey, if you like my stuff, you might like their stuff, and helping to kind of grow the industry and grow the genre. There's that example, and then there's one more, which is around cost. Kickstarter charges, almost 9%, sometimes as much as 10% when you're in Canada because of the cross-border stuff, to fund your project. We use a model where we will use a tipping model, which is similar to what we do with our fundraiser platform and a little bit GoFundMe and others will do. And you can do some fee recovery on that, where you can ask the donors to cover your payment processing fees. And as a result, our projects are significantly less expensive to run on Crowdfundr than they are on Kickstarter. Like, it's typically our users are costing them somewhere between 1% and 2% when they're using our fee recovery model. That's including the cost of payment processing, which is over 2%. So it's free to use our platform, basically, as compared to almost 9% for using Kickstarter or Indiegogo.
And because it's Canadian funds, it's a little bit better, maybe?
Well, it's Canadian funds if you're, first off, we understand the ecosystem. We actually know where some of the places are, where people run these things from. And our support is here. So, if you're looking for help, I think that's another area, one of the reasons why we get such high ratings on things like Trustpilot and other sites. We're getting in there with 4-star ratings where the others are getting 1 and 2-star ratings. And a lot of that is because we consider that we invest in our projects, our time and our help. We have a campaign strategist or a crowdfunding strategist that will help some of our campaigns in just designing it. How do you go about running a crowdfunding campaign? How do you design your rewards? How do you promote it to your community? And we offer those for the outrageous price of free. Now, obviously, we can't have people abuse that. We're not there to become an agency for free for you, but we can give our expertise and our guidance, because when we invest in a project that does well, we do better. So we operate on this little bit of generosity principle of, well, we try and go the extra distance because it's good for everyone.
Wow, that's great. That's a great resource to have for sure. So as I mentioned off the top, this interview is part of a larger series of podcasts. And in light of the current issues facing creators in the industry, there's so many right now and there's more every day. I'm asking the question, can we make comic books and graphic novels in Canada? It seems that Crowdfundr is a great resource to participate in that. Anything that, from a philosophical standpoint, you think that might be stopping us from doing it all here in Canada?
Yeah, it's interesting because I think that there's this whole catalyst of the tariff issues and whatever has helped Canadians reawaken to the idea that we have something unique and valuable to offer in the world. And that when we take care of each other and we work with each other, we are stronger than before. It was pretty easy to kind of forget the domestic market, forget the fact of being Canadian when we're sitting next to this huge market just south of us. But one of the things that we got to do with ConnectionPoint with Crowdfundr is to start from the position that we're competing in the world. We're not just competing in Canada or America. And as a result, we structure things differently. We view it differently. And I think there's no reason why Canadian creative industries cannot tap into a broader world market, and doing that by starting with a strong domestic market. So, I think that this is one of the things we're learning out of this, no crisis should be put, wasted, is being able to learn something from this.
Very good. With everything that you've been talking about, Daryl, I'm wondering, where do you recommend that people go to find out more information about Crowdfundr and how it can help them with their creative projects?
I recommend checking out crowdfundr.com. We have some resources on there that will help, just explain the way the platform works and that kind of thing. We also have a creator hub, and the creator hub has where we're putting more information from the community about what techniques and examples of campaigns that are working. We try and educate as much as we can, because a lot of the time there's a little bit of fear, uncertainty, and doubt about whether or not a project can succeed. And that's one of the nice things about this model, where you can give it a try. There's no harm in trying to fund your project, because if it doesn't work, it doesn't cost you anything except for some time that you put into it. So especially for first-time creators, it can be a really low risk entry point. And I think as we get more professional creators like Black Eye, who are doing multiple projects, they're seeing the power that comes from having more control over their future and being able to manage their own community and, kind of help cross promote between others in the community and really grow the audience for your work. So I would suggest start with crowdfundr.com, fundr.com, and then look for the links to the Creator Hub there. That'll give you more information about the whole creative journey.
Great. Well, Daryl, those are all the questions I have for you, but I'm wondering, is there something I didn't ask that you'd like to get across in this interview?
I think one of the things that people misunderstand sometimes about crowdfunding platforms is they believe that the platform brings you the audience. It can help bring you the audience, but it doesn't bring you an audience. And if you have a project that lists on Kickstarter, comics is one area where Kickstarter does reasonably well in terms of bringing an audience. We have to acknowledge that. But the thing is, the audience belongs to Kickstarter, and it's very difficult for you to kind of take that audience away on your own. With what we do, we're trying to say, look, it's your audience, and you can take that away with you. And as a result, we need to find different ways of promoting these projects. So I know this is a bit of a longer answer, but the key point here is that we're trying to work with the community to build collaboration in growing the community, the industry, and the audience. And not just about being here, kind of run your project with us. We make lots of money. And we don't want to talk to you with you anymore. We're not here to kind of optimize our results at your expense, which is what I think you're seeing with Kickstarter and with Indiegogo. They're really trying to figure out how to grow their revenue. We're trying to figure out how to grow our revenue by helping you be more successful. And that's a key difference in our kind of approach. I tend to think of it as a very Canadian approach. We're about community at many levels. You can't survive in this country unless you got some community around you.
Thanks to Daryl for the chat. You can discover more about Crowdfundr online at Crowdfundr, that's CRODFUNDR.com, and on Instagram at Instagram.com/crowdfundr_. And thank you for tuning in to the True North Country Comics podcast. I invite you to visit the True North Country Comics website to listen to even more conversations and discover more about creators' insight on making comic books and graphic novels. I also encourage you to subscribe via the website so you'll be notified about new podcast interviews and article posts. This podcast is available wherever podcasts are enjoyed. Please like, follow, and subscribe. And please follow along True North Country Comics on most social media sites, and send any and all feedback to John at TrueNorthCountryComics.com. Thanks for tuning in, and come back soon for another episode. Bye for now. True North Country Comics Podcast is copyright True North Country Comics, copyright 2025.